Welcome back to the deep dive. If you're listening, chances are you've set a huge goal at some point. Maybe mastering a skill, getting your finances sorted, or that fitness level you've always wanted. And, you've probably hit that wall, that feeling of overwhelm. The goal just seems too big. The jump, impossible.
Yeah.
So today, we're deep diving into something, well, almost counterintuitive. This powerful idea that the real secret to massive success isn't some grand gesture. It's actually something much, much smaller, more consistent.
Exactly. Our mission today, really, drawing from sources on what's often called the consistency compound, is to help reframe how you think about big change. We want to uncover this kind of surprising truth. Those seemingly tiny, sometimes frankly boring, daily habits, they are actually your most powerful tools. We get caught up chasing the big dramatic leaps, right? We think that's the only way.
And that's the pain point, isn't it? That feeling that if you're not putting in like 8 hours a day, you're failing. We assume it takes this massive heroic effort. But what these sources are saying, and it's a bold statement, is that the real path, the path to massive impact, is through small, consistent steps every single day.
Yeah, we're going to explore the mechanics of how these tiny, deliberate actions, just repeated over and over, build this incredible momentum, turning those big dreams into reality, but crucially, without that feeling of instant overwhelm.
Okay, let's tackle the root cause then. Why are we sort of wired this way? Craving immediate results. You see it everywhere. The highlight reels, the overnight success stories. It really skews our view of how achievement actually happens, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. We live in this instant gratification culture.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's the enemy of consistency. You see the musician on stage, you think, wow, talent. You don't see the 10,000 hours, the frustrating practices.
Their boring scale.
Exactly. The sources are super clear on this. Real success is built on those unseen daily grinds. It's not about sudden breakthroughs or taking huge risks. It's just about showing up consistently, even when it feels tedious.
But showing up when it's tedious, that's the killer, right?
Yeah.
If I just read 10 pages today, I don't feel any different. It feels insignificant. So how do the sources explain why this long, kind of painful waiting period is worth it? We need to get into the engine here. What makes consistency work?
Right. Okay. So this is where a bit of math and the power of time come in. We're talking about the compounding effect of small actions. It's simple arithmetic on the surface, but the results are, well, they defy our intuition.
Right.
So when we talk about marginal gains, we mean tiny measurable improvements, like 1%. Imagine getting just 1% better at something every single day for a year. Seems tiny, right?
Almost negligible.
But by the end of the year, you haven't just added 365 tiny bits of improvement. Because of compounding, mathematically, you're nearly 37 times better.
Wow, hold on. 37 times from just 1% a day. That number, that right there is the key.
Yeah.
Our brains think linearly, like 1 plus 1 plus 1, but consistency delivers exponential growth.
Yeah.
That's
fascinating.
It really is. Can you give us a concrete example, something maybe from the sources that helps visualize these marginal gains?
Absolutely. A classic one often cited is from professional cycling, the turnaround of British cycling. They didn't just go out and sign some superstar rider. That wasn't the focus. Instead, they obsessed over hundreds of tiny 1% improvements. Things like finding the perfect pillow for each athlete to optimize sleep, testing different massage gels, optimizing nutrition down to the gram.
Weirdly specific things.
Simply specific. Even painting the inside of the team truck white.
White? Why?
So the mechanics could spot tiny bits of dust more easily, keeping the bikes impeccably clean. Reducing friction, literally.
Wow. Okay, those details are so small, they almost sound irrelevant. Like, how much difference can a white truck make?
Individually, almost none. But that's the point. When you layer hundreds of these tiny, seemingly insignificant improvements together, the cumulative effect was monumental. They went from, decades of pretty average performance to completely dominating the Olympics, winning multiple Tour de France. Almost overnight, it seemed.
But it wasn't overnight at all.
Not at all. It was the compounding effect across every tiny aspect of performance. And this applies directly to you listening right now. If you commit to daily reading, say, just 10 pages, seems small. That adds up to dozens of books a year.
Right.
Or saving. Consistently save, just say $5 a day. Put it aside automatically. You barely notice it day to day. But over years, especially if it's invested, that consistency builds a significant cushion. It compounds. That 1% isn't about running a marathon tomorrow. It's about maybe one extra stretch today or one more minute of focused work.
And this feeds into what the sources sometimes call the snowball effect, right? Where those initial consistent efforts start building momentum, and it actually makes it easier to keep going. How does that work psychologically?
Yeah, it's kind of twofold. First, physically or skill-wise, things actually do get easier as you practice. The task becomes less demanding. But second, and maybe more importantly, is the psychological shift. Consistency transforms in action. It goes from being a chore, something you have to do, to just part of who you are. It becomes a habit.
An identity thing.
Exactly. Once that pattern is established, your brain uses less energy to do it. It becomes more automatic. And those small wins, they fuel the desire for more small wins. You prove to yourself, hey, I'm the kind of person who does this.
Okay, so that brings us right to the practical side. Because, let's be honest, everyone listening has probably tried to start a good habit
No.
and failed. This is where it often falls apart. So what are the specific strategies? How do we actually build these unbreakable habits? Implementation is key.
It really is. And the first step the sources emphasize is starting tiny. Identify achievable habits directly linked to your bigger goals. But crucially, use strategies to overcome that initial resistance. Don't start with write a book. Start with write one sentence.
That's one sentence.
Just one. Don't aim for an hour at the gym. Start with just putting on your workout clothes.
That sounds like the 2-minute rule I've heard about. That it? Keep it so small it takes less than 2 minutes.
Precisely. That's a core concept in a lot of this material. If the goal is reading more, the 2-minute version is just opening the book and reading one line. If it's running a marathon, maybe it's just tying your running shoes and stepping outside.
Okay.
It's all about lowering that activation energy, overcoming the friction of starting, because that's what kills consistency most often, just getting started, not the middle of the task. And this is vital for sticking with it when that initial burst of motivation inevitably fades, because it will fade.
Always does.
Right. But if the habit is small enough, if the bar is incredibly low, you rely less on fickle motivation and more on just routine. Motivation is unreliable. Routine is dependable. If your goal feels overwhelming, shrink it. Shrink it until it feels almost stupid not to do it.
What about setting up your environment? Because I know for me, failure often happens when the easiest path leads to the bad habit.
Yes, environmental design. That's huge in the source material. It's about making the good habits obvious and easy and the bad habits invisible and difficult.
So, practical examples.
Okay, if you want to practice guitar daily, don't keep it in the case, in the closet. Put it on a stand right in your living room. Make it visible, obvious. Want to eat healthier snacks? Put the fruit bowl out on the counter. Hide the cookies in a high cupboard. Out of sight.
Make friction work for you, not against you.
Exactly. You're deliberately engineering your environment to support your desired behaviors, reducing friction for the good stuff, increasing it for the bad.
That's subtle but powerful.
Oh.
Okay, we also need to address the psychological feedback loop. When you're doing these tiny actions, one sentence, one push-up, it can feel, well, pointless in the short term. It's hard to stay motivated when you're in that phase the sources call the plateau of latent potential, that long stretch where you're putting in the work, but you're not seeing tangible results yet.
Oh, that plateau.
Yeah.
It's the graveyard of good intentions, truly. And this is exactly where the sources stress the importance of celebrating micro-victories and focusing on process or input goals, not just outcome goals. Meaning, acknowledge the small progress. Did you stick to your plan? Did you write that one sentence today, even if it felt dumb? Great, that's a win. You celebrate the act of showing up, the discipline itself, not just the final result. You're reinforcing the identity of being someone who follows through. And if we connect this back to the real world, we see this consistency principle proven again and again. Case studies of people achieving huge things purely through consistent effort. Think about an author who commits to, say, just 500 words a day, every single day, no matter what. Rain or shine, inspired or not.
That doesn't sound like much per day.
Nope. But over years, that's how novels get written. That's how multiple books get published, not through sudden bursts of genius, but through that relentless daily quota.
Or you see it in tech, right? The startup that becomes this huge disruptor. They didn't launch with a perfect product on day one.
Not at all. They used constant iterative improvement, making the product 1% better week after week based on feedback. That slow compounding growth looks like an explosion from the outside, but internally. It was just relentless, consistent tweaking, and it applies everywhere. Fitness, finance, learning new skills, advancing your career. Consistency is like this universal lever. Which brings us to a really crucial point, often overlooked, but highlighted in the sources. Patience and persistence are explicitly noted as being far more powerful than raw talent alone.
That feels like a huge claim. Our culture seems obsessed with innate talent.
Talent can give you a head start, no doubt. It might make the first few weeks, maybe months, feel easier. But the minute you hit that plateau, and everyone hits a plateau, talent often stops being the deciding factor. It's the person who persists, who pushes through the boredom, who keeps showing up for that 1% improvement day after day. They're the ones who ultimately reap the compounded rewards. Talent can be fleeting. Consistency builds permanence. The sources strongly suggest that those who cultivate an identity around their habits, I am a writer, I am a runner, I am someone who saves, they're the ones who stick with it long term, not necessarily the most naturally gifted.
This really is such an empowering idea for you listening right now. You already have the power within you to create significant, even life-altering change. It doesn't require some massive dramatic overhaul this weekend. It just requires those tiny friction-reduced shifts starting today.
So the clear call to action, drawn directly from the source material, is this. Identify one small, consistent action you can start today. Something so small it might even feel a little bit ridiculous, but something you can genuinely commit to doing every single day for, say, the next month. Don't obsess over the immediate result. Just focus on the repetition. Focus on not breaking the chain.
And building on that, here's a final provocative thought for you to consider, to explore on your own. If consistency is the fuel and habit is the engine, how effective are your current methods for tracking that progress and keeping yourself accountable? Do you use a habit tracker, a calendar with X's, a journal? What strategy will ensure you actually stick to that one tiny deliberate action you decide to start today? Think about